So in this part, we're going to go for SwitchBack in here. You know, SwitchBack is a kind of, for example, feature that will give you this possibility that you select the kind of element Navisworks, and we'll check that, for example, which part this element is that it's got been imported. For example, you've imported that from Revit in here, and you want to see, for example, which part of this model, this element is existing, and we want to just find it easier if you were going to have addition on it or interference, for example. You can just have access to that really faster. You know, the SwitchBack got added, for example, to the since the version of 2017. If you have lower version, of course, you don't have this possibility, and it's after 2017 version that on AutoCAD, Revit 3D Max, Emitter, for example, or MicroStation, this SwitchBack will be activated. And really important point is, for sure, the software must be installed on this software. For example, when we are going to work on Revit and Navisworks, Revit must be installed on that actually software that the SwitchBack is activated on it too. So to do it, actually in here, you can select the element that you want. In here, after selection, actually you have different types for example, having access to the icon of the SwitchBack in here. One of them is if you click on each, for example, topic in here, item tools, we have a kind of SwitchBack, so we can have access to that in here too. By right clicking, actually we are able to have access to SwitchBack in here, or for example by selection tree, we can go on element that we want in here. So let's just click on one of these beams to see it better. Right click, and for example here we have it SwitchBack too. So if actually you're using Clash Detective in here, and some of these elements actually are checked for example, clashings. As an example, let me click on these beams and here in Clash window, and actually the main beams in here. So let me just show them to you in here. And when you run it in here, every kind of clash, it selects actually in here and down here. If you pay attention, we have a kind of part in the more items. So let me just open it in here. Of course, we will just talk about that in clash part. Selection A, selection B, for instance. This, for example, just in here, for example, we had A, B selections in here. So each one that you want to consider, for example, we have them. We have the possibility of the SwitchBack, and if you click on that, you will select that. So we are not going to talk about the clashings in here. Just I wanted to tell you that we have SwitchBack in here too. So let me close it in here. Let me actually click on one of these items, and for example, right click from here or items, SwitchBack. Let me click on them. And that, you know, generally the first time you will face this actually warning. Actually, to activate this possibility, actually we have to return to Revit again, and actually we have to use actually a lens in here. The external Navisworks SwitchBack will be activated. I mean, or for example, you click on it. The time that you click on it, you know, since now the SwitchBack will work. It's just okay if you just click on it, and SwitchBack will work. You see the model or element, for example, in here will be found on Revit structures. So automatically it will create a kind of view for us, and that on 3D actually in the name of Navisworks SwitchBack in here. And that element actually will be displayed to you as a kind of selected thing. It tells you that the thing that you selected on Navisworks is this one. If you want, for example, to edit it, or any of the changings that you want, you can just do it in here, and again you can just return it to model. As for instance, I want to change the type of that, just we can come here and change it in here, or any other, for example, changings that you want in here, you can do that like this. So let me change it to this element, for example, something like it. After finishing our work, actually we can go to this part, and we can export it exactly on the last file that we had in here before. We'll wait that the exporting is completed in here, and after finishing the exporting actually in here, we will go in Navisworks. It's just enough or okay that you click on refresh or F5, and you can, as you can see, it got updated in here. It got changed. So let's return to Revit again. Control Z, that it will be returned actually in the first item. So again, let's just export it in here, that we can actually return it to default. The point that we have in here, that for example, the Revit will remain exactly on the path that you had exported by default. It must be remained, of course. If the path is changed, you will see a kind of warning. So let's close it, save. In here, actually, because we had exported again, so let's click on refresh. It's returned onto the default again. So actually, in this path, right now the structural file is existing in here. So let me create a kind of folder that, and after that I will just name it str, and this structural file will be dragged into str, and actually like this. Let me just set the Revit like side by side in here. For example, let me just select this one. Let's go in item tools and let's click on SwitchBack in here. If the path is changed, you will see a kind of warning that, for example, I cannot find this path anymore. Please show the file of the Revit that which path it is existing. So if it happens, it means that you've deleted something, or maybe you've changed the name, for example, you named it before, or maybe you've changed the path or the right direction of that. So let me browse it in here. Let's go inside this folder and open. Okay. Automatically it will open the file and it will tell you that where it is. So it's really interesting possibility and practical, of course, that the users of the Revit structure or Navisworks simultaneously can use actually this direct possibility, that they are able that sometimes some places they can do the matchings really easier. Of course, you have to pay attention to this point that, for example, in heavy projects, actually this work might be a little something out of the reason. Maybe in just lighter projects it's really good, maybe, but in heavier projects it's a little hard. And the reason is if for example, or you, for any kind of problem, or for example checking, you're not gonna just do SwitchBack, because SwitchBack possibility, editing, exporting will take a lot of time from us. So if, for example, the project is a little actually heavy and the number of the issues are a lot and high, we will prefer that to show the issues at first, and after that we will have exporting by XML, I don't know, or for example HTML or other formats that, for example, the other formats that are supported by Navisworks, and after that we'll go on Revit or AutoCAD, that or any kind of softwares that we're using them as a kind of base. We'll do all of the changes and directly, and after that we'll have exporting. Otherwise or for example SwitchBack or any other issues, for any other issues that you're using, it will take a lot of time for exporting and importing, and it will be a little hard for you. So in the first actually designings, the time that you're doing, for example, to see where this element is existing in here is really practical and perfect.